Hello, Internet. It's Daniel with Driving and Dragons. Here today with a special, doing an interview with Richard Littles from Gorgon's Grimoire. And he's just released the Damsels, Adventurers, and Dragons game. It is a 2E retro clone in the OSR vein. He's got a really interesting license for it. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. We're also going to talk a good bit about his Ghosts of Vietnam game that seems really interesting to me. This is a pretty lengthy interview, so I'm going to cut straight to the chase and get on with it pretty quick. Just like, share, subscribe. Get this out to your friends. Check the link below, or the description below, rather, for a link to his game, as well as a link to my Patreon, where you can help support the channel and maybe help do more long-form interviews like this. And let me know in the comment section below what you think of the game, what you think of the conversation, and what you think about some of these long-form interviews. And we're going to go ahead and get right to it. So I'm going to bring on and introduce the first person who's going to go for a drive with Driving and Dragons, Richard Littles from Gorgon's Grimoire. All right, everybody, we're here with Gorgon's Grimoire. Got a new game coming out, actually already out, and it's pretty fantastic. But just wanted to sit back and see what we can do. Pick his brain for a minute. And this is a big one for all you OSR guys who are out there in the second edition world. Because I mean, let's face it, 2E does not get a tremendous amount of love. But Gorgon, tell us a little bit yourself.
Um, well, my name is on the cover, so you can just call me Richard. And I'm the son of a Vietnam combat vet who served in the U.S. Army. So I got into history through him when I traced his scars on his back from when he was tortured by the Viet Cong, and he escaped from being a POW. And so I got into gaming in 1984. My first game was AD&D First Edition. Didn't play for like 5 years because it was only a one-time thing. And then I got in as I got older. Second edition came out, and then I was an adult, and I can start playing games. And that's when I got into D&D real big, and that was a second edition. And I've been playing ever since. I've played well over 50 played and ran well over 50 different role-playing systems, and I'm lumping in wargaming into that number. So I played a lot.
That's on. So I'm assuming that's where a lot of the Ghosts of the Vietnam War stuff has come from, because those are those novels that you've written or short
hmm
stories.
No, they're novels. They're actually novels. They're a fictionalized account of my dad's life.
It's pretty. It's actually something you and I have in common, both having a dad who served in Vietnam. But
hmm
so it's a fascinating history. There's a war that it's not the forgotten war like Korea is, but there's not a lot of Vietnam War material out there that's really about the war itself and really soldier experience. I think you get a lot of Vietnam stuff. You run into a ton of the here's how we focus on the political overtones type stuff.
Right. I actually did. I took the title Ghost of Vietnam, my novel series, and I made it into a role playing game. And I'm using the same core mechanics that's in Damsels, Adventures, and Dragons. So if you know second edition or Damsels, Adventures, and Dragons, you will know how to play Ghosts of Vietnam, the RPG. The way it's structured is that your characters all start at level one. I kept the class groupings. So for warrior, um, you have rifleman, automatic rifleman, which is your M60 gunner, grenadier, tank and APC driver. Uh, Hold on, I need to pull up my rule book here.
To pull up the old ghost book, which that is that you want to talk about a niche that's there too. I don't really know a lot of true role playing games that are set in that kind of era. I mean,
There's only one.
technically, Call of Cthulhu is set wherever you want it to, and you use interlock and a few other things for that. But you get a lot of late 1800s, Old West. You get some World War stuff,
Hmm.
um, and then you get some modern stuff and some slightly postmodern stuff. Not obviously not postmodern philosophy, but postmodern as in 20, 30 years from now type stuff, like cyberpunk, that sort of thing. But that I would say probably from the 50s or 60s up through modern day, you really don't get a lot unless you're playing a 1980s cyberpunk game and then you're playing today. But you get what I'm
Right.
saying. You don't get
Yeah.
that, you got that big gap right there, that modern day history. There's not really a lot of role playing games there.
There's only one other Vietnam RPG out there, and that's Recon, and that's been out since what, 79, 80.
No, that's not one I've actually ever even heard of. Is it a straight Vietnam role playing game, or is
Yes.
it or is
Yeah.
it fictionalized?
It's a fictionalized one, but it's more cinematic because it uses Palladium system.
Okay,
So the
but
original was actually a war game, and then Kevin Saibata, I don't, pardon for forgive me for mispronouncing his name, but he he bought the he bought he got the rights to it and published it as a role playing game underneath Palladium.
okay. So, like I said, that's not one I'm familiar with. So but it is nice to have a little bit more in that particular era because let's face it, settings make the game, or not settings make the game necessarily, but your rules really make your setting in a lot of ways.
Yes.
The game has to serve the setting, and while you can adapt just about anything to fit, you can always tell. And that's one question I do have for you about Ghost of Vietnam, as far as the game is concerned, is you can almost always tell when somebody tries to adapt a system to meet something that it wasn't really designed for. And a great example is I think D20 Modern for third edition Dungeons and Dragons is really a pretty pretty terrible modern system. But on the other hand, you can take fifth edition and the Everyday Heroes, which is literally fifth edition for modern day, and it's almost like it was designed for modern day because it's better at that than it is as a fantasy role playing game. But you can tell that a lot of the mechanics are informed by the type of feel you want in your game, and I'm really interested to see how you adapt second edition to fit a modern gritty war feel.
Okay, well, I kept all the hit dice the same. All the saving throw tables are the same. So they're all done by class group. As I was saying about the different classes, Wizard Group is radio telephone operator, combat engineer, Huey pilot. Priest Group is medic and psyops. Rogue Group is LERP team member, which stands for long range recon and patrol, which later morphed into the Rangers, the modern Rangers. Uh, then you have sniper and intelligence, and then I have dual classes. And the dual classes are Ranger or Force Recon, and they're merging of two classes. So you take it's basically like how AD&D did multi-classing. So you pick two classes, and that's how you do it, and then they level up at different rates. If you're going to start with a dual class character, they start at level 3 for Force Recon and Ranger. And then I have U.S. Special Forces and Navy SEALs. And those two start at level 7.
So you start at level 7.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you what you've essentially done is taken the multi-classing style of an OSR game or a AD&D and almost merged them with the prestige class from third edition. So it'd be something else for first and second level that are part of the long range recon or the ranger or part of the Navy SEAL. And then when I get to that sixth or seventh level, I'm balanced out, and then I start doing the dual leveling like I would for for AD&D. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, you're what if you start at level 1, you're stuck there in that, unless of course you go back home and then you're sent to training and then you pick up another class like a dual class. I will have to write that in explanation. Thank you for reminding me. Uh, so you start out as your parent class, and then you can uh, you could pick up a second class as you go through training. The entire tough part is making it through the tour. So on the character sheet, you have what is called DEROS. That's the acronym. It stands for Date of Estimated Return from Overseas Service. And that's what they use. And so U.S. Army and Navy use 12-month tours. Marine Corps use 13-month tours. Uh, so your character literally walks into Vietnam on day one of their tour, and they have to survive 365 days. Uh, and how Vietnam was fought was different from every other war prior, because it was a helicopter war, it was a mobile war. Uh, Units went out, like in the Mekong, they would go out from a fire base, patrol a couple of miles out, come back. They couldn't do large sweeps because of the terrain. And then uh, at mid 1967, that's when the Brownwater Navy was born, with merging with the U.S. Army to form the Mobile Riverine Force, and you had the two groups working together because of the sheer amount of waterways and canals and stuff like that in there. And so, but everywhere else, you're choppered in and out, and you didn't hold the ground. You just went in, you did a patrol, you came back, and if you were lucky, you didn't have a contact. But according to all the stats I've read, like from Dirty Little Secrets of Vietnam, which is an excellent book, shows that your average tour for a combat arms person was that they were in combat from between 320 days to 345 days. And compare that to World War II, they were in combat maybe 25 to 40 days in 4 years.
Yeah, it's definitely like you said, a totally different war. And I'd never even thought about it from the perspective, and this is actually kind of strange for me because this is normally the way I look at things. But looking at it from the perspective, the tactical perspective of the fact that it was fought, like you said, as kind of a mobile fire base, going out of the fire base, quick mission, in and out, not taking territory, helicopter war, really does make it a great setting for a tabletop role playing game, because it really makes sense. One of the biggest failings of D&D on the large scale is because the game is designed to focus on a party of characters. Once you get to to that large scale conflict, it doesn't matter how powerful your characters are. Your 5-man team is not making that big of a difference in a large scale battle that has, you know, 30 or 40,000 troops in there. An extra 5 guys, no matter how good they were, was not going to change Gettysburg or Chancellorsville or something like that. But
Right.
when you look at, like you said about Vietnam, that's kind of perfect for, choppering in, choppering out, and get in, get out, achieve the objective, hit the target, but we're not holding the ground. Not the large scale combat that you saw in virtually every other war.
Right. The core of how this game is structured uh, is is that the players and the adventure master and the players are all part of a squad. Okay, and that squad is embedded in a platoon, because that was the basic formation that they used in Vietnam was a platoon. So, and a platoon is between 30 and 40 guys.
Yeah, I was about to
So
say
you're
that's
look,
less than 50 guys.
yeah. Well, like in my dad's unit, Charlie Company's 60th Infantry Regiment, our Charlie Company 2nd Battalion, 60th Infantry Regiment, 9th Infantry Division before they left Fort Riley, Kansas, they were bulked up between 1965 to 1966. They were bulked up to be overstrength. So his platoon was 66 men. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that
so we're
means,
not talking about massive. We're not talking about the core warfare that you saw, for instance, in the 1800s, from like the Napoleonic Wars up until World War One. Those, they said, the core maneuvers being the big part of the battle.
right. And, well, they did have set piece battles in Vietnam. You had the Battle of Ia Drang, which was in 1965, which was recorded in We Were Soldiers and We Were Young, the novel or the book, and then it was turned into a movie called We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson, and it was and that was a battalion sized battle there, and they were facing off against the division of NVA.
Yeah,
So
but still not the norm.
no, that was not the norm. Most of the time, it was like platoon versus company or something like that, because the thing, like in the Mekong, you had Viet Cong sympathizers working inside of all these fire bases and everything else. So the moment a platoon stepped out of the fire base, the VC knew that they were on the move, and so they would observe and everything else. And that's why noise discipline became such a thing in Vietnam, that if you didn't if you made any noise like a twig snapping or your dog tags jingled or whatever, it gave away your position. And then you would get ambushed. Uh, so that's why they would carry around six canteens. Every guy was carrying six canteens, and they would two or three of them would open up their canteens. They take a sip, drink as much as they want, then they pass the canteen around the squad, and that would that way they would drain the canteen, because you couldn't have it sloshing, because sloshing made noise and that caused problems.
Yeah, I mean it's a very high stress situation and kind of a also a little bit of a case study in why you don't get involved in other people's civil wars.
Yep, pretty much, pretty much.
So,
You wanted to know? Did you want to know about the lethality of this?
oh, absolutely. Let's go ahead and touch on that real quick before we get back to the real topic of damsels, adventures, and dragons. But the Ghost of Vietnam really does fascinate me quite a bit. So let's talk a little bit about that, about the lethality of that game.
The only armor you have is a steel pot. It gives you one armor class.
So you're getting
That's what
hit.
you're. Well, it's not that. It's that the way I have it designed is that if you're behind cover, the cover functions as the armor class, and if it gets past that, it hits you. So if you're hiding behind an earthen berm, yeah, the earthen berm's going to absorb the hit, or if you're hiding behind a cinder block wall, the cinder block wall is going to take the hit and not go through it. That's how I simulated it. But the damage scales anywhere from 1d6 up to, I think it's 10d10. But 10d10 is like a 500-pound bomb.
Well, it's like I say, if you're using an M60 or something like that, or something tells me the cinder block wall is not going to be quite as efficient as it is against, say,
No,
M16.
no. It actually has hit points. So your whatever they're shooting through has hit points, and it will destroy. It will crumble and shatter and stuff like that. So I kept that in. Um, let's see what else. That automatic fire. Okay, so still use Stacko to hit armor class 0, and for an M16 or an AK-47 or any small automatic weapon, that it fires has a rate of fire of 5. So for every 2 points that you beat the 2 hit roll by, another bullet hits. up to the maximum of that shot. Uh, M60s are for every our rate of fire of 10, and for every one that beats the to hit number is another bullet that hits. And then autocannons they have a rate of fire of 20, and for every one that they beat the to hit number by, they two bullets hit.
So that's kind of similar to the way it works in Cyberpunk Red, where your automatic weapons, they deplete a certain amount of ammunition when you use them in automatic fire, but it's based on how far you exceed your to hit roll. It just determines how many of those bullets that you fired actually hit and do damage. Really, just instead of doing multiple attacks, just how good was your one attack?
Right. I didn't realize that. I didn't read Cyberpunk Red, so I didn't
It's
know.
it's a great way to handle. To be honest, it's a great way to handle multiple attacks. Period. Because anytime this is just my philosophy on it. Anytime you start adding additional die rolls to combat, you kind of got it's counterproductive because the more
Yeah.
die rolls you have, like I used to use this example all the time talking about fighting. Because I was a professional fighter when I was younger, and you can break down a single exchange between, say, two boxers, for instance, into 50 or 60 rolls. I mean, how realistic do you want to be? There are so many small factors and variables that go into, does a punch land? How hard does it land? And what kind of effect does it have? But the thing is when you want to simulate combat is quick, it's dirty, it's you don't remember everything. I don't care how good you are at it. You put a guy with a photographic memory in a fight, he is going to forget pieces of it. It's not going to come together all nice and smooth. It's a blur. You get situations where 10 seconds feels like 10 minutes. You get other situations where 10 minutes feels like 10 seconds.
Hmm.
And you can't simulate that. You can't simulate that hectic fast pace if it's like, okay, well, first I need you to roll to see if you actually hit. And then I need him to roll to see if he gets a parry. And then I need a roll to see if he still takes damage because it's a bad parry and it sends numbness in his arm. And then I need to make sure I have an adjustment for how much the numbness in his arm is. And does he have a second attack, or does he have this, or how does it affect? Did he have, is he on uneven ground while you're on stable ground, or any number of 100 different variables that go into these exchanges. Now you're not, if you want to simulate a computer program, just sit down and do math homework.
Yeah, really.
So
I
like man, I got 10 attacks. I'm not rolling 10 times. I'm rolling once. And if I beat it by a whole bunch, I get a whole bunch of hits. I think that's the best way to do that, that kind of automatic fire combat. Plus, I think it also gives you that terror, that dread of that that automatic, seeing that automatic weapon when somebody pulls that M60 over. Like, you got an A10 Warthog that's coming bearing down on you, and you see that cannon on the nose. You know how much damage every one of those damn milk bottles that it's shooting hits for.
oh
And
yeah.
you understand that it's about to launch a whole bunch of them at you. When you got that, he rolls one time, and how far he beats you is how many times you get hit. That is so much more terrifying than he's going to roll 50 attacks. It's like he's going to roll one attack, and if he beats you by 5, you just got hit by 5 2-liter Coke bottles. That is that's terrifying.
Well, I also added in suppressive fire. So if you got an M60 or an autocannon, you can do suppressive fire instead. So you're basically attacking an area at AC 10, and for every bullet that hits, quote unquote hits. Okay, you're not actually hitting anything, but for every round that hits, quote unquote, you subtract 1 from the enemy's morale, and they have to make a morale check right then and there.
Which is, once again, not to compare it back to another game, but very similar to how it works in games like Cyberpunk Red for those who've played it, where it's a matter of basically forcing them to make some kind of save or will save to be able to do anything. Or if you have success, it causes problems back to to the target. So, for instance, I like that better than Cyberpunk Red. Having a more built-in morale system. With theirs, it's simply if the suppressive fire is successful, you have to move for cover immediately. Like, you don't have any other options. That's what your combat turn is going to be, is you diving for cover to try and get out of the field of fire.
Right.
So, I do like the morale, because it's not saying that you can't do other things while you're under suppressive fire. It's just, are you going to be the guy? Are you going to be Wyatt Earp at the shootout at the creek, who just goes walking out into crossfire and somehow manages to not get hit? Because even though you got these morale penalties, you still roll really well. Or are you going to be the guy who's like ducking under a desk, just holding his hand up over the top of it, squeezing off rounds without aiming?
Right. So, one last thing is that how I handled radio telephone operators is that um, they use a, let's just go ahead and call it, they use like spell slots, but they're not called spell slots, they're called command authority. And they only have so many of them a day. And they have calls that they can pick from the back of the book, from the command authority section. Um, or command authority and field protocol. And what it is that they can call in like dust offs, for wounded, or they can call for reinforcements. I actually turned monster summoning into a reinforcement, so it starts out as a platoon and goes all the way up to a full company. So starts with one platoon, then two platoons, then three platoons, and the fourth one is a full company that comes in on Chinooks.
Hey, call in the cavalry. And how
Uh-huh.
did you make any adjustments to healing? Just this will be the last thing on Ghost of Vietnam. Otherwise, you and I'll sit here and talk about it for hours. But did you make any other changes to the healing in it to make it more, for lack of a better term, more realistic, to give you more of that Vietnam era feel as opposed to the fantasy feel where you've got cure spells and whatnot?
Well, the way I did it is that I put in field kits, medical kits, so it basically functions as cure light wounds or whatever, but it's an actual kit, and they're limited by slots. I.e., they only have so many of these kits with them in the field, and if they need more, they have to beg the radio telephone operator, "Hey, can you call in a resupply run?" And that's going to trigger a noise discipline roll, which I will not explain. I will leave that out there. It's a mystery. Um, so they only have so many slots as well. Like engineers, they only have so many slots for claymores and stuff like that. So everybody's got a limited amount of slots, and then you do have your standard healing rate from Dad, which is the second edition of everybody's favorite role playing game, and then your healing or professional skill like medic will add an extra point of healing per day. So yeah, they just have to make their skill roll, and that's it, and then they can heal back stuff. But if you take such massive wounds that you will trigger the rule injuries from a specific wounds, so specific injuries. And if you take so much damage and you fail your save, you actually lose a limb, and it's called $1 million wound, which is what they called it back then, $1 million wound. And you're loaded up on a chopper and you are sent home. And at that point, the player has to roll up a new first level character to come in as a fucking new guy.
Because you may not be dead, but you may as well be.
Pretty much, yeah. So, but that's how I handled it. I turned magic into actual slots. And then, like for the radio telephone operator, you're looking at between 2 to 10 plus rounds for a response. So it's not immediate.
Oh yeah, and it kind of shows I guess you could say the way the sausage is made in a little way, but it kind of shows you the elegant solution to, say, fifth edition's big problem with all right, well, let's go find our short rest. Let's go find our long rest. Let's get all our spells and stuff back. It's like the game is set up to where it's like your skills and abilities, because they're tied to physical pieces of equipment outside of like, hey, I can bandage up a wound or I can make your healing more efficient over time, is these are like per mission abilities, not per day abilities.
Yeah.
And
Well,
resupply
most
requires actual effort.
right, and most of them like it. Most of the tempo and stuff like that in Vietnam was you go out for a day on a patrol and you come back. But it also depends upon what your mission is. If you're like long range recon and patrol or part of MECV SOX, but Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observation Group, which is the Black Ops, you can be out there for weeks. So that's your kit.
Oh
And you
yeah,
have to,
we you and I both know that if you got 5e players doing a Vietnam mission, it's like, okay, here's the mission. We're going to drop you behind enemy lines from behind the helicopter. You have to go. You have to hit this village or this base. You have to get these POWs out, and you have to get picked up by this. You're going to get picked up by a Chinook over here, and you have this much time to do it. Your 5e players are going to be like, okay, well, we fought those. We ran into those two scouts, those two advanced guards. Let's go ahead and take our long rest before we move to the next part. It's like, is there a way we can? We got into the base. Is there a way we can like post up in one of their huts for a long rest?
no. It doesn't work that way.
I
Not in
used
real
one of
life.
my I used one of my med kits. I need to get it back.
No, you're stuck. One last thing is that I actually used the Defense Mapping Agency actual maps. Okay, I give links to the actual Defense Mapping Agency's maps that they used in Vietnam. The ones are that I linked to are from 1970. And they include Vietnam is its own. That's series L7014, and they're 1/50,000 scale maps. I actually have how to read them and written up in the book. Uh, then there's Laos and Cambodia. I think they're I don't know which one is which. I can't remember off the top of my head, but one is 7,013, and the other one is 7,015.
Well, you just lost a customer. I don't think I can be party to playing any kind of role playing game where the maps don't include magic rivers that make no sense, mountains that appear out of nowhere, and climates that don't matter at all. I got to have mountains that have dry sides on both sides or wet sides on both sides. I don't think I can deal with these maps that make sense.
Oh well, I'm sorry. Uh,
So getting back over towards the bigger, what style of play was really your thing coming up? Because you touched on, you said you started with AD&D, but really got into it with second edition, which makes a lot of sense why you would be making a second edition based game for Dad. But what overall style of gaming was your thing? Were you more of the raw war gamer type? Were you more of a narrative gamer? Because it sounds, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds to me like you really hit your heyday right at the same time as the Hickman Revolution was moving things from a war gamer focus on a squad as part of a bigger thing or adventure dungeon delving game into more of a into more of a narrative game, especially when you start rolling into second edition.
more of a narrative. I was more of a narrative player as an adventure master. Like a combination of all three, because my Missing Out Malanos campaign is a hex crawl, because it's like Birthright, but without all the blood stuff. And everything's done by month long turns. or month-long rounds, and then the year is broken up into 4 turns, and each turn is 3 months. So, and then I ask my players, "Well, what do you want to do?" And they tell me, and because it's the Stone Age, they're exploring around them. So they just woke up after creation, and they've interacted with their gods directly and stuff like that. So it's all three.
Okay. So I guess we've already really kind of answered the question of why second edition. And I'm not going to make the assumption. I'm going to go ahead and ask, what made you decide to roll forward with, I'm going to be the OSR guy who redoes second edition instead of being the 19,000th guy who redoes BX or the 10,000th guy who redoes AD&D. And was this a ploy to avoid arguments with the Bro SR since they just ignore second edition?
I didn't even know Bro SR existed until 2013, 2023. So yeah,
I don't think they
uh,
existed until about 2023, to be perfectly honest.
and no, I started on Myth of Malnos, my setting for AD&D Second Edition, and then I realized that I needed to have a rule system that I could actually reference without infringing on anybody else's trademarks and their setting IP. So I've always loved Second Edition. It was a much more elegant solution to what was in first. I always say this: Gary Gygax was a brilliant man. He was a brilliant thinker, philosopher, and designer, but he sucked at writing. And even a good friend of everybody knows in the studio, in the audience, will know him. He was the last reigning grandfather of D&D, and he even agreed. He said that, yeah, Gary, he was a great first draft writer, not a great finishing writer.
Well, Gary had a little bit of a problem. Now, I didn't personally know him. I didn't have the pleasure of personally knowing Gary, but you can tell a little bit about the way people write.
Hmm.
And Gary, arrogance is the wrong word, but he wrote with a certain elitism, and he had this habit in his writing of never using simple language where something extravagant could be put in place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's his college education kicking in. I don't fault the guy. I mean, he was a great, like I said, he was a brilliant man. He was a great designer. He was a great philosopher. I respect that about him. But his flaw was in his actual execution, and people love it. But I I went with second edition because it took what Gary had done and refined it to a final state that makes it perfect. I mean, it's not flawless, but it's perfect to run under rules as rulings or rulings over rules, which is Gary's philosophy. Not like today where everything's obfuscated and vague and everything else, and you have to buy slack book after slack book to fix the problems that are in the core system.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, gaming's kind of split into this weird situation where it's just like everything else. I mean, we're not going to get into any other social or political commentary here, but it polarized. And it's
yeah,
turned into rules as written, exactly as written, the words on the page. And if you deviate 1 second, you're a troglodyte moron who's not really playing, they don't really play nonsense. Or you're on the complete opposite side where it's like the only rule is it's rule zero because there's zero rules. You look at games like Daggerheart, you look at games like Candela Obscura, you look at basically the entire Fate system. You or not Fate, the entire like Powered by the Apocalypse system. It's like these games don't really they look like games when you look at them from far away, but once you really dig into them, it's like, hey, there's not really any way to address 90% of these, and it's really exploitable if you look at it as a game.
hmm
So you got that huge divide where it's like, why can't we just come back to the middle here? Why can we not balance things out? There's no reason that I can't have a good, strong narrative game where we develop a story without having and have some random elements to it. I
That
don't need
that
a I don't need a novel where I'm plugging you in as a character, and I don't need a empty blank hex map where I roll what happens to be every time you take 2 steps.
that all boils down to what Wizards did right after they took over TSR and D&D. Uh, Monty Cook was given the task of assembling a team, which he did, and the high ups at Wizards wanted him to turn D&D into a CCG. So they intentionally put in weekend choices in there, made the rules really vague, and the only way to fix the rules was to publish more supplements, which in turn gave rise to the OGL, which we won't discuss right now. But everything was designed around disempowering the DM and making the players the controllers of the game, which is the inverse of what it was, where everybody had equal input in the game. And it was rulings over rules where you could plead your case, you can make a logical based case to your DM and say, this is what I think should happen because the rules doesn't cover it. And the designer, and I embrace this, is that the designer is not going to be at that table 100% of the time. So there's no way to know how to write a rule. So you have to have so much uh, faith in your adventure master, your game master, or your DM into handling how to adjudicate things. Because I'm not at the table. I don't know what's going on in your campaign. How can I write it? How can I write for some really obscure interaction between you and your players? I can't. So I have to hand it to the person that's actually running the game.
Absolutely, and to fit with the theme of this channel, uh, it's just like building an engine. It's the tighter the tolerances, the better performance you get out of the engine. But there, you get to the point where you start stacking those tolerances, and then you end up with a 10,000 horsepower engine that the second it sucks in a quarter mite of dust, it blows the whole thing apart. So there, you have super loose tolerances, which would be not enough rules, and now you've got blow by, you're burning oil, you're not getting good compression, and you've got this big monstrous V8 engine that's coughing out a whopping 80 horsepower and can barely move your car and sounds like crap and gets horrible gas mileage on one end. And on the other end, you got this thing that looks like the perfect race machine, but it can never make it more than 2 laps without falling apart. And you got to find the thing in the middle. And I'll say this, and some people on my channel are really going to be shocked by this. You're absolutely right in the issue with third edition, because I'm a 3.5 guy. I think 3.5 is peak D&D, but it did mark the beginning of that shift away from the game master having a lion's share of the authority, and it put more ability, more mechanical ability to disrupt the game in the hands of the players. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you weren't smart enough as a game master, or not even necessarily smart enough, if you didn't take the time as a game master to make sure that you were very careful about which pieces of the puzzle you allowed on the board, your players would put together a character that just wiped out everything and broke the whole game. And you really couldn't say anything because you allowed it.
Mm-hmm.
That progressed and got worse with mainly with fifth edition, with Pathfinder, and then with fifth edition, I would say, because fourth edition is kind of an odd gem that's out on its own, but that's an odd duck. But then fifth edition, you get to the point where I call it toxic player agency. It's hyper player focused, and
Mm-hmm.
the players have everything. And you wonder why games don't make it more than 4 or 5 sessions, and groups are always falling apart. Well, it's because you don't have that central anchor that you have in the Game Master. And then you go all the way back to first edition. That's where we got the trope of the Game Master versus player, evil Game Master who's out to kill everybody, just manipulates things to make sure the players all quote unquote lose things. Just like anything else, you got your different extremes. And in that regard, I do think second and third are really where D&D was at its best from, say, 1990 to 2010.
I'm going to disagree with you politely on third edition because I view it as Dandino, D&D in name only, because it shares nothing of the original. My hard cutoff for D&D is TSR only.
That's not an uncommon place, but it also depends on what you're looking at and how you're defining Dungeons and Dragons. There's a very clear, easy argument to be made that it ended because third edition, make no mistake, is a completely different game mechanically than everything from white box to, or really everything from chainmail all the way up to second edition. You don't see vestiges in there anymore. So that is a place to make a clear line.
So the reason why I stuck with second edition is because it's fine mechanically. There's nothing wrong with the mechanics. I've heard the complaints of, Thaco's too hard, so I rewrote the rules on how I rewrote the explanation on Thaco. I made it very clear. This is what you do. And it's very simple. It's simple math. It's simple subtraction. It's not hard.
I've never gotten that because it's literally what is Thaco? The number you need to roll to hit
0
armor class 0.
Mm-hmm.
It's right there in the name. All you really need to know, you really simplify it, is if I need to roll a 10 to hit 0, then I need to roll a 0 to hit 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that hard.
Well, I presented the two solutions. One is if you know the AC of the creature you're hitting, and then the other one is if you don't. And the second one is this is the AC range you hit, so you can, figure it out on your own. Eventually, your players will guess. They will nail down through a combat exactly what the AC of the monster is, just by the sheer amount of swings that they take. And I think that second edition is a sweet spot because it gets through the weird stair stepping and to hit tables on the combat matrices. It makes things just a lot simpler, and because it is still compatible, or it is still D&D, you can still take AD&D first edition stuff and put it into second edition with very little modification because they're the same.
It really is a second edition of the game.
Right.
It really is it's within the same bloodline, so to speak. And you can't do the same thing with second to third, for instance,
right,
or third to fourth, or fourth to fifth. They really, once you got to third edition, they started making mechanically different games. But you're absolutely correct on that. And I look at it, and I'll never understand the people who argue so much for weapons tables, because to me that just goes back to more reading in books and doing math homework instead of feeling combat.
Right.
And it's very war gamey, where it's a very academic, very procedural pursuit. And I'm perfectly okay with a very academic procedural pursuit in a game when I'm competing against another person.
Right. Say,
yeah.
I kept weapon speed, but it's an optional rule. Same with spell casting time, optional rule.
Yeah. And weapon speed's not necessarily a bad thing to go with either, because it does make a little bit more sense. And it gives you, it's one of the things that I've always said has been a problem with more modern D&D. And I will say that this is something where third edition falls a little short. At least in third edition, they try to do some stuff to make up for it. But fifth edition, it's just pointless.
I think
some of
one of
those
the
things it added more depth to the weapons, so you had more weapons that were more viable and had more reasoning behind why I would use this instead of that, why I would use the halberd instead of the ranasaur, instead of the long sword, instead of the short sword, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas once you start getting to third edition, um, third not as bad, but especially late in third, and you start getting into um, fifth, there becomes a clear favorite for this is the weapon you want because it's mechanically the best.
yeah,
And
I just don't do that. I never use weapon speed in my own game or casting times. It just slows down the game. I just go, okay, go in your order. This is what you do. Tell me what you want to do, and they tell me.
yep,
I mean, for every modifier that you put on everything is you're taking valuable seconds out of your game time, in
and in
calculating.
the worst place possible. In the worst place possible. Give me a chart or something to look up for these social encounters, but don't do it in my combat. Combat's supposed to be harrowing. It's
Yeah,
supposed to be edge of your seat, and I'm not at the edge of my seat when I got my nose in a book.
believe it or not, people are get shocked when they look at Dad and see how few combat modifiers there are.
Hey, fewer modifiers means less math, which means quicker, dirtier, quicker combat, which means
Well,
more realistic and more exciting and
yeah,
easier.
yeah, and I just the the thing about let's clear the elephant in the room. Everybody's going to be asking, well, why are you using game mechanics and stuff like that without the OGL? Game mechanics are not copyrightable if you write them in your own expression.
That's right. It's really, and we'll get to this in a minute, but it's really why the OGL is almost a everybody. It's brilliant marketing by Wizards of the Coast, but OGL was literally people praising Wizards of the Coast for being so magnanimous that they gave them something that they had no right to in the first place.
Yep. So so back to the combat modifiers. I only wanted to throw that out there to explain that data in tables is not protected expression. The look of the table is protected, but the data in it is not. So all the combat modifiers and everything else in my tables is from second edition. Didn't change it because it's not copyrightable. So that's why AD&D second edition flowed so well at the table was because you didn't have all these stacking modifiers. If I remember, I don't know if first edition had that many modifiers either. I don't think any of the D and TSR versions of D&D had that many modifiers when it came to it. But man, when you get to third edition, you're like looking at what 5 to 10 modifiers that you can be applied in any combat role.
You got quite a few. Third edition was all about trying to have some sort of mechanic to address just about every situation. And it's actually one of the places where a lot of the breakdown happens in third edition games, where you really do have to know the rules to run third. Is you get these people, oh, my armor class is 30. It's like, how is your armor class 30? You look at it, it's like your armor class is not 30. You've got a +2, a +5, and a +3, and they're all deflection. You only get the +5 because the same bonuses don't stack. You just get the best one out of the group.
Yeah,
And
I like the simplified descending armor class.
but
But continue. Uh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, my friend.
there's benefits and there's drawbacks to both. And one of the drawbacks is when you have a whole bunch of extra stuff, A, you got more homework. And B, you got more situations where the whole game can grind to a halt while you figure out that one guy who just perused the rule book instead of reading it or misunderstood something has now wants to go sit down and rework his entire character because he based it on a premise that he didn't understand or didn't bother to read. But that's
I
a
think
conversation for a different time. So you used second edition. What major changes did you make to second edition with Dad?
nothing really. Brought in I brought in rules that to round it out from other original supplements. Like what was missing was ships and ship combat. I put that in. Put in how to build laboratories and altars, and then spell components, how to find them. That's missing. Uh, I changed the entire clothing, because you only had that really short list of clothing in the original player's handbook. I actually made design your own clothing. So you start with the base piece, and then you choose your fabric, and then you add in any decorative elements you want, and that defines your price. So I that way you're not that way you have a dynamic economy, which I think works better than what they had. What else did I change? Oh, I expanded out the deck of many things to be a full 52 card deck called the Deck of Unbridled Destiny, with 30 new cards that are 15 good, 15 bad. So they're really powerful. Uh, I read off some of them to you when we were on T-shirted Historians panel.
Yeah,
And
and
what do you think?
I did have a question on that one too because I'm a huge fan of the deck of many things, but I do see one major issue with the deck of many things, and if you have really good players, it's typically not an issue. And if you don't inform them of the card they drew or what it does, it it helps prevent that issue. But the deck of many things have been around for so long that everybody knows them. And that is there's a lot of cards in the deck of many things that rely pretty heavily on metagame information. So like for instance, Comet. The Comet card, you gain an entire level's worth of experience by defeating the next monster you face.
Hmm.
But you have to face it by yourself. You have to face it alone. It has to be the very next challenge. And pretty much everything that's involved with Comet relies on metagame information. Why are your friends not going to help you? Why are you going to go fight something and not have your friends help you? What is a
I
level? You know,
I kept that the same.
okay. It's not that there's a bad thing. I was just wondering if that was something that
Well,
you addressed in your when you went ahead and modified it. And to be honest, if you found a way to address it, I'd actually like to hear it because there's
well,
not.
if you actually read the card, it says to defeat. It doesn't say kill.
Well, yeah, defeat, but you have to do it by yourself. Why are you defeating the next enemy by
No, it
yourself?
could be a challenge. I mean, if you got a face character, it would be easy to defeat it. Just walk up to it, very friendly, and you got your charisma bonus and your appearance bonus stacked, and you force the adventure master to roll on the encounter reaction table. What's the worst that's going to happen? Cautious.
Well, I get that, but you're still that's not even the problem I'm looking at. The problem I'm looking at is why are you doing this by yourself? Like, why would your character do this? So you and I are part of a group, and I drew this card. I have no idea what it does. This is just the card I drew, and then you and I walk up, and there's a group of guys that are say I don't know, they're kind of being thugs and they're harassing people. And they come up and they come to harass us. Why am I going to handle that on my own and be like, don't help me? I'm going to handle this when you and I have handled everything together before. Like, why am I going to go,
I
I'm going to
never
fight
thought
these
of
guys by myself?
I never thought of that. I just always thought the original card was fine because I never really cared. I never really used the deck of many things, to be honest, in any of my games. Uh, I did use the deck of Unbridled Destiny because I'm playtesting, so I have to try as many variables, and nobody really drew the comet. They always drew something else, and I don't mind, but I again we're back to rulings over rules. If the adventure master wants to say, "Well, your friends can help," then that's up to him, or her.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I don't think it's that big of an issue. I use the deck of many things a lot. I've used it in several campaigns, and most of the cards don't have anything remotely objectionable to start with. So
Mhm.
it really only comes down to a couple of different cards. Comet being the one that's the easiest to make an example out of, but I always kind of think about it that way a little bit. It's not that it can't be adjusted or corrected, but I do look at it sometimes where it's like, you're going to make a magic item and you're going to make players have their characters do things based on game mechanics. It's almost reverse metagaming where we're dragging game mechanics into the story, where your character is now thinking about classes or you know
Well,
spell slots or whatever, when that's not really how you would think they would think of it in real life. But like I said, that's just a question I thought of if it was something you had considered when you made when you expanded the deck, because I really like the expanded deck.
oh, thank you. I appreciate that you like it. No, I didn't because the original's Gary's. He created it. I asked Rob about that. I said, "Who created the deck of many things?" And he said, "Gary did."
You mean it wasn't an autistic paladin chick that played for like 6 months before she got a job?
Oh no, no, no! And I got blocked by wizards over that.
That was so ridiculous. I mean, they're that place needs to be gutted.
I agree. It needs to be burned to the ground.
And what's funny is that most of the people they fired probably needed to be fired, but they
Hmm.
needed to be fired for hiring the people that they didn't fire.
That's true too. See, the thing is that Monty Cook, he he commodified the game. He turned an RPG into a CCG, and it was intentional. He admits it in his article, Ivory Tower Design, and they were reviewing how they designed Magic the Gathering. And so a lot of the principles of the design from Magic the Gathering were put into D&D 3rd edition. And that's why we got the mess that we have. And so I that's why I don't like the way that the game is and why my game is more revolutionary because it's more it's the same rules as what was published almost 40 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah, good 30, 35.
So, but the rules are fine. There's nothing wrong with the rules. The rules are fine because they're light, they're fast, they're quick. Nothing slows down. It it is rulings over rules. So you don't have to have every single splat book that comes out in order to fix the core problems with the rules. If the rules at the core level are fine, you can take those core rules and apply them to any genre that you want, or you can take it and make a war game out of it, which is what I did. I made a war game out of the Dad core rules, and you can take your character from Dad and put it into a tabletop war game, 1 to 1.
And that's it. Definitely kind of puts the point on it right there for sure. And so what sets Dad apart? What sets it apart from the rest of what's out there today, other than the painfully obvious, which is everybody ignores second edition? But
Well,
even what sets it apart from second edition?
I'm the only live one with the complete rules. I never altered the rules. I never changed them, unlike for Golden Glory. That's what my comparison tweet was. I compared what Dad is versus what uh, for Golden Glory is. I also have a clean license. I'm not beholden to OGL SRD because I wrote everything myself. Um, I expanded the rules. I combined the player's handbook and the DMG into a single volume. Plus, I give you a full character folio at the back, a full 7 pages, which you've seen the character sheet. What do you think?
That's a pretty complete character sheet. There's not really much of a much to argue about there. It's and it's better than what you get from a lot of games these days. There's no real question about that. Um,
Uh,
Not overly generic, so you're not looking at a situation where you're kind of lost on it, but it's nice and clean. You got you got, like, for instance, you look at your armor class where you've got your armored, natural, shieldless, prized, rear attack. You've got all your different adjustments in there, but at the same time, we're not running into. It's not basically it's not overly complicated, but at the same time, it's not overly simplistic to where you're kind of trying to figure stuff out. It's a really, really well put together character sheet.
oh, thank you. Another thing that sets me apart is that I changed how the universe is. I converted the planes into planets and into a planetary system. So it's now a galaxy instead of the planes. The planes always drove me nuts as a player and as a DM of D&D. I always hated them because they got confusing, you know, uh, on the layers and stuff like that if you're in this one or that one. So I just made it easy. And if you look at if you look at like the rendition of the Milky Way, you can easily tell, well, this is the galactic core, this is where the inner planets are, this is where the ethereal nebula is, this is the only slot between the inner and outer planetary systems. And so I just made it easier. Then I threw in the Cthulhu Mythos on top. Well, my version of the Cthulhu Mythos. So,
Well, it kind of fits because, like, one of the biggest problems you have with the multi-planner system, so to speak, is you have to deal with these really abstract concepts that do not comply with physics,
mhm.
and they require almost a four-dimensional level of thought, which is incredibly confusing for a lot of players. It's incredibly confusing for a lot of people. Like, the abyss is infinite in all ways, yet it has these different layers. How do you
Yeah,
have layers in something that's infinite? It's like it doesn't conform to the normal rules. I'm okay with that, but I know a lot of people who are like, when they hear that, they're not even going to try to understand it. They just throw it out. By making all these planes just different planets, they may as well be different planes of reality to a medieval era character. Because it ain't like Henry VIII had a rocket ship in his backyard. All right.
right.
But Charlemagne had all the money he could want, and he couldn't get to the moon, let alone to Jupiter or Neptune. So it's functionally the same as being on a different plane, but all you've really done is, okay, we got the elemental plane of fire. All we need is something that's a world of fire that conforms to physics, to our physics. Congratulations, the elemental plane of fire is something like what is it? Cygnus YG, I believe it is. This is like the largest star that we know of right now. Some
I
giant, super colossal red giant that is all the way out to Jupiter if you put it in our solar system. So there you go. It's like there's a giant superstar somewhere that happens to be the elemental plane of fire.
well, I turned them all into planetary systems. So if you got the elemental plane of fire, it's actually the elemental planets of fire. So it's a complete system. So, and that's all defined by the adventure master on how many planets he wants in that planetary system. I offload a lot of stuff to the adventure master to let them create their own version of the cosmology, which is different from everybody else.
That's fantastic. I love any game system or any game product that puts a lot of the creative onus on the game master. I'm a game master myself. I've been a game master almost exclusively for most of my gaming career. I very, very rarely actually play characters. And a lot of that's because I actually kind of like it that way because I'm a world builder. I've got chronic world builder syndrome. And I've always felt that these games, the products, should be game master focused.
Hmm.
Give me the tools to create a game other people want to play. I'm not even
Yep.
necessarily buying your game. I'm buying your game maker's toolkit because you're giving me the mechanics, you're giving me the pieces. I'm building something that other people want to sit down and experience.
Right. And that's why, well, I guess it's the perfect segue into the next topic, the open garden license.
Yeah, definitely something that needs to be looked at there for sure. Is you got your own, basically your own OGL there,
Hmm.
and I guess the first question to talk about there is why are you why be concerned with a license in the first place? Um, as you and I, as you mentioned earlier, and as we all know, you can't actually copyright mechanics just the way they're expressed, and so nothing you're doing relies on it. Why have a licensing system for people to just do something that you've already admitted that we can't really sue for? Like, you can sue for anything, but you can't win.
Right. My big difference is I'm giving people what what every other publisher hides: trademarks, logos, name, setting. You can for so for the free tier, you could just say compatible with rule system, and you define the rule system. Anybody can do that. You can use the mechanics in your own words. That's fine. I can't do anything about that because I'm not trying to claim ownership over something I don't own.
And you're not
Uh,
gonna. You're basically saying I'm not gonna come at you and sue you because you said it's compatible with with Damsel Adventures and Dragons, and it's not. It's compatible with these games and this system. I'm not going to come
mhm,
after you because you said my name.
right. And then for the paid tier is $50, and that's a yearly fee. And for that, you can use my logos, my trademarks, my name, my setting, and then you can put you have and then like the free tier, you have to put on the cover and in your credits page compatible with roll system. And what I'm doing is that I'm letting people build in a garden. That's why I called it the open garden license, is because I'm letting people into what I created. I want other people to build. I'm not there to monetize what they worked on, you know. So I'm not taking a cut of their profits. I'm letting them build on what I built, and that because I'm a creator, and I got almost screwed out of a setting I created for my daughter when she was still alive. Um, I started working on In Septem Terminus Chronicles of the New Confederation in 1996, got it done in 2010, went to a publisher, and they slipped in a transfer of copyright clause into the contract. And I said, no, I'm not signing that. And they refused to remove the clause. And you can't X out a clause unless both parties agree to it. So I just walked away. I'm not losing a legacy that I wrote for my daughter. Sorry. So that's why I wrote up an actual standard book publishing contract and brought it into the tabletop RPG world, because I'm tired of seeing creatives getting screwed over by companies and being content mills for these companies, and they are actually getting anywhere from between 25 to 50%, if they're lucky, off of their own labor.
So basically, the long and short here is that what you're wow, I just completely lost my train of thought. That is entirely on me. What you've done, your idea is with the $50, you're not saying, hey, you have to pay me $50 a year for as long as you are selling your product.
No.
You're saying for $50 for this year, you can produce things. Now, after
Mhm.
that, you can't update it, you can't change it. You can only publish the version that you made while you were paying for the license. But I could theoretically pay you $50, build something entirely in your world, use your copyrights, use your creations, and as long as I don't change it after that, I can just sell it forever and make my money.
Yes. And I don't touch it. and I don't make a dime off of it. And that's terrifying to people because I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the love of the hobby. I love RPGs. I love wargaming. And you and I, we've talked privately, and you know that, I'm sure. You've talked to me for how long? So why don't you tell people what you see in me?
Well, I mean, it's you really kind of hit the nail on the head. You're trying to develop something, you're putting something out there that's designed for people to go out and create and be protected. From the conversations we've had about it, the feeling I get on the open garden license is, and I think I'm about to answer the next question I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you about what the primary goal behind this license is. And what I see as it from the conversations I've had and discussions about it, and from your appearance on a T-shirt, it's the Weekend Geek, is what you want to do is create a system where somebody can go create without concern, which is really what, in a way, what the OGL did for Wizards on one level was, hey, you don't have to worry about us coming after you. Yours is deeper where you're like, you can use all my stuff. You can do everything. Go create the way you want to, make money off of it, expand it. We're all going to benefit from it anyway. I want to see more of this, taking the good parts of the OGL a step further. That's
Well, the
really the way I see it.
yeah, well, the thing is that the OGL was poisoned from the beginning.
Yes,
Uh, they, they took a software license and put it into RPGs. And the problem is that software is copyrighted. Game mechanics are not. So there's your problem. And they claimed, and they muddied the water intentionally between their expression of game mechanics versus public domain game mechanics. So now they got everybody 25 years later believing that you need the OGL to put out a product for them, for their system, when you don't.
absolutely. I mean, they tried to. They didn't do it quite strenuously enough with the OGL, so they tried to do it with the GSL and then with the OGL 1.1. It's that inherent thing. By accepting their permission, you're acknowledging that they had some right in the first place,
Right.
as opposed to just being like, I'm going to do this anyway. You can take me to court. Of course, the problem is the court is extraordinarily expensive. Um, the open garden license, and I do believe that it's getting some notoriety, and I believe it's getting some well deserved notoriety. And I hope that if the game itself does not take off, which I truly hope it does, I do hope that this license and this license structure does, because basically you're doing what all the other licenses like this tried to say they were doing.
Yeah, and I don't lie about I own game mechanics. I don't. I'm very upfront about it. It's actually in section 13 of the license. I said flat out, game mechanics are in the public domain. If you're going to be in the paid tier, then you get to use my exact expression up to 1,000 words, which is generous, I think. Um, which means that I shortcut the entire SRD thing because you can't take my mechanics and create an SRD off of it because you're creating a derivative of my work. So, yes, you can create your own core rule book, using my mechanics. I can't stop you from doing that. And if you do, I'd be very much interested in buying it from you because then it means less work for me. Um, so, and that's the thing is that I'm very fair with people, and you can vouch for my character because we've been friends for a long time now, and I don't try and steal. I don't try and lie. In fact, I don't lie. I don't steal. I just tell it like it is, and if I hurt your feelings, well, too fucking bad. I'm sorry.
Well, the good news is you don't actually have to care about your character because of the way you got your that simplistic license set up. Now, you and I've had the discussion before. I think that there are some places where it's a little too simplistic, and it could deal with having a patent, not a patent, but a copyright or a trademark attorney go over it just to, maybe somebody who's got some experience in publishing just to tighten it up a little bit without changing the actual intent and the actual effect. But it's a very, very simple license written in extraordinarily simple everyday speech. It is not something that you're going to need to, you're not going to need a few years of law school to read through this and not want to beat your head against the wall, or be somebody like me who reads contracts every day for a living. So it's it, the intent is about as clear as it gets. The only people who are ever going to misconstrue the intent of the way your license is set up are the people who think they should always get everything for free, and they're going to balk at the fact that there's a $50 to use your trademarks, which is insane to start with. It's like, you're using my IP. You can use the rules and everything for free. It's just using my expression costs money. But the other side of that is that they're not understanding that for it to really stand up, there's got to be some kind of exchange, what's typically referred to as consideration. There has to be some kind of exchange there to lock it down and make it's almost a legal protection.
Mm-hmm.
Back to us older guys will remember buying cars and writing the bill of sale to say, $100 and other reasonable consideration, so that we could pay taxes on $100 instead of the car being considered a gift
Mm-hmm.
and having to pay tax on the full value, or obviously putting $10,000 on there and paying taxes on the
It's the same thing
$10,000.
today. It's the same thing if you go buy a car from a dealership today. You're still paying money for, for a contract if you're doing it under leasing. Same thing, or under a mortgage or whatever. You're still,
You're just buying it.
yeah,
If you look at a car contract, like you look at an auto sale contract from a dealership, and you look at that bill of sale, it does say as consideration for this agreement, and then your purchase price.
yeah. So I just was clarifying so that way people didn't think that things changed from when we were teenagers till now.
You don't see that a lot anymore because, like, for instance, here in the state of Alabama, where I'm at, they rewrote the laws to kind of close that loophole. Where if it's I forgot what the actual number is, but it's basically like, if you're obviously undervaluing the vehicle in order to skate the taxes on it, we're going to tax it, the greater of the value or the bill of sale now. So it's like, you can't go buy a $20,000 car for $1 in reasonable consideration and pay taxes on $1 instead of $20K.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
And it does. But
but
the point is just the understanding of why there's money involved and what consideration is, and why it's presented that way is not, I want to hit you for $50. And
yeah,
it's laughable because, oh my God, he's trying to get that $50. They may not even make that $50 off of it. It's like, well, I mean, other licenses want a percentage of if you make anything forever.
yeah. Or they'll charge more up front. Like $1,000, 10,000.
Yeah.
I'm going in at $50, and the one of the clauses in there is that I actually have arbitration. So if there's a problem, we go to arbitration, and you don't have to come to my home state of Michigan. You can do it. We can do a teleconference.
Well, yeah, and you also make it a lot cheaper than going to court because, I mean, in some places arbitration clauses are not that great, but in a situation like this, it's pretty good because if you're going to argue with me, like if you want to come after me and say I'm violating your IP, I mean, trade IP court, it's 30 grand to get it in front of a judge.
Yeah,
It cost me a few $100s to get a retired judge to come sit down and arbitrate between the two of us.
yeah. And say now to explain, I'm not looking to make royalties off of individual creators or even studios, okay, that build write up setting books or and adventures and stuff like that. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking at external. So if you write a complete setting and you want to put it into a virtual tabletop, then they have to come see me because it's using my IP. And how I'm going to work it is that I'll get that there be royalties baked into that license, and then I will split the royalties for what their part of the IP is. So it's very fair.
Well, I do hope
So
you get to the point where a VTT, somebody's developing a VTT for your game. I would be ecstatic to see it get to that level.
I've got somebody that actually followed me that does that, that actually
Really?
does put assets onto a virtual tabletop. Yeah. So just follow me today, as a matter of fact. There are people buying the books. Had a guy come on to Discord last night. We talked, Laxmir. We talked for about 3 hours. I showed him the proof copy of the hardcover, and he was impressed. And he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and buy this now." And he bought it. And so I tweeted up, "Hey, buyer number two bought Damsels Adventures and Dragons." And I told him, I said, "Hey, why don't you go ahead and put Damsels Adventures and Dragons buyer number two in your bio on Twitter?" And he did.
Hey, and
So
where can people buy this? It's a good enough place in any way to ask that is where can you find your game?
it
Where can you find um, Damsel Adventures and Dragons? Where can we buy and really more importantly to people like me, where can we find that? Where can we get the physical copy? Where can we get the PDF?
the PDF you have to email me at Gorgon's Grimoire at outlook.com. Uh, and you tell me if you want to, if you tell me that you're going to buy the PDF. And if you've already bought the hardcover, the PDF is $29.95, which is completely fair. Uh, But if you buy the hardcover and you show me your Lulu receipt, I will sell you the hardcover, or I will sell you the PDF for $10 as an add-on, because that's what I'm doing on Drive Through RPG when it goes live. So, but it's actually on Lulu right now. You can buy the hard copy, and I will give you the link, Daniel, so that way you can put it in the description.
Please do, please do. Well, and I'll have the link there as well as the link to your Twitter account and all that in there as well. The so you're going live on Drive Through RPG. We got a date for that yet?
Nope. 3 to 7 weeks. I posted that. I submitted it on June 20th, and they said 3 to 7 weeks for me to get my proofs.
Ah.
So who knows? Between 2 to 3 months.
So are you doing print on demand through both Lulu and
Yes.
Drive Through?
Yes.
Fantastic, fantastic. And
And go ahead.
I was just going to ask where we're going next because I know the whole thing is it's dad and then there's mom
Mm-hmm.
and there's
Kids.
kids. What kind of timeline have you got for the other game? And really, what's the difference between them and the core system itself?
Okay, Mom is Myths of Melanos, which is a setting book. You start in the Stone Age right after creation, and I was writing that up in 2015, and I wrote up like 50 pages of history, and I said, you know what? There's all these other worlds out there that have 50 plus pages of history. Nobody's actually done a world where you start at right at after creation and then let each table have their own unique history. Thus,
No, and
Mom was born.
that's definitely a way to jump in there because we all do that anyway. That's what we all end up doing anyway. It's like, well, we're kind of in Greyhawk, but it's really different because it's got this, that, and the other. Or I've
Hmm.
transplanted parts of Greyhawk over here to do my own thing over here, and I do think that a lot of these games, speaking on third editions, praises here is you had rules to go all the way back to the Stone Age. Like, okay, if you want to use Stone Age weapons, here's how you adjust them. If you want to use Stone Age equipment, here's what's available, and here's how you do it. And here's the adjustments you need to make for this time period. So it did give you a good world builder's toolkit. But yeah, I mean, when you got things like Harmony Ginger out there pushing the her Godstain is taking off like wildfire and seeing a lot of interest. Why not have your game already set up to where it's like, hey, you're starting, here's a setting, and the setting starts on day one. So it's already, we've already seen that people have an interest in playing earlier versions of the settings.
Yeah, and so the way Mom is set up is that the group decides what race they want to play, and they've started as that race. No other race, because all the races awaken in different parts of the world, so they haven't met each other. And there are some good races, there are some evil races. They are alignment coded as per how it used to be. Um, and then you go out exploring. You start in the Stone Age, and then it's actually a generational game. So everybody starts with one character as their main, and then they can have up to 5 henchmen as backup. So that way, in case your main dies, you have a character that's ready to go right then and there. So every player at the table is running around with a party of their own. And combat is actually pretty fast because once you get used to running five or six characters, you don't really have to look at the character sheet to go, oh, what am I going to do? No, you remember because it's muscle memory. And so you start out in the Stone Age, the next age, and then you got to research 90% of the tech in that tech tree. And then once you search 90% of it, then you go over into the next age. And the next age after Stone Age is the Bronze Age. Research 90% of that. Then you're in the Age of Iron. And then you go into the medieval age and then the Age of Sail eventually. So, and it's a long form game and it's generational. So when your original characters get old and they retire, their kids take over. So you keep extending the game out that way. Uh, and one of the things that I actually have as an action, as a free action, is build your family. Basically, is you roll to see if any of the women in your dynasty get pregnant, and then you determine how many kids they're pregnant with.
Well, and what about kids?
Kids is Calarian's Index of Denizens and Sorcerers. That is my monster manual. And I did it uniquely in that it's written from the point of view of an explorer and his observations.
Instead of it just being an index, it's like looking at the scientist who's discovering all these new creations and creatures and life forms.
Yeah. Would you like an example?
Absolutely.
All right, let me pull one up for you. We'll do. Okay, so I decided to use Sumerian mythology as a basis, or Sumerian as a language as a basis for Dad. That's another difference. So it's not English. Okay, so this is Creature Codex entry number 2, Akilo Hisamatu, or Hisatimu, an exploration of a malevolent entity. Akilo Hisatim is a malevolent and dreaded entity and sinister reputation born of its formidable powers and gruesome propensity for devouring the brains of its unfortunate victims. This scientific account aims to shed light on this enigmatic creature's attributes, behaviors, and abilities. And then it goes on to physical creature characteristics. Standing at approximately the height of 6 feet, and the Akilu Hisatemu presents an unsettling visage. His skin, an eerie shade of sickly green, is coated in a slimy veneer that adds to his grotesque allure. The creature's head bears a disconcerting resemblance to that of an octopus, characterized by pale white eyes devoid of any discernible pupils, 4 supple tentacles encircle its mouth, forming a circular, many-toothed orifice reminiscent of the maw of a lamprey. Its limbs consist of 3 reddish fingers and a thumb on each hand, completing its nightmarish physique.
Fantastic. So he's a, you know, similar to but legally distinct from a mind flayer.
Yes, and
Hey,
named and Sumerian named. I
there you go. I like that. I like that flavor. I like that. I like that approach. Just because it. And there's no reason a rule book shouldn't be immersive. When are mom and kids on the agenda? How what kind of publication schedule are you looking at there?
right now I'm trying to finish up Ghosts of Vietnam. Uh, so I just need for Ghosts of Vietnam. I just need to finish up the 17 pre-generated characters for Operation White Lotus, which is the starting mission, so people can play it right away. Which all the characters are based off of my book Ghosts of Vietnam, the draft in the Mekong. So yeah, I'm also a novel writer. Yay! Um, so I think I'll do Mom next because that has the miniatures rules in it for and because I would have to go through and re-edit kids and make it more functional. Because right now it's sitting at 700, almost 800 pages. It's a
Wow.
little large.
Yeah, that's quite massive. We don't need another 1,300 page PDF.
And besides, because I am using 2E, you can always go to, what is it, monstrouscompendium.com that has all the AD&D 2E monsters on it that you can use. So
Yep.
not, I don't think there's much of a rush for kids, do you?
Well, probably not, but it's a good thing to get it out there. Stay on that schedule there. But mom definitely, I think, is a probably a piece that needs to happen sooner rather than later, just because it's one of those things where you got people out there who have chronic world builder syndrome. You got other people out there who don't want to be bothered by that. They want to open a book, sit down, and have you tell them everything and how it works. So I think a setting is usually pretty important just for a game to take hold. But once again, we're looking at second edition. It's not an unknown quantity, but um,
Plus, there's other second edition settings already there.
exactly. It's not like you can't go out and pull Birthright or Dark Sun or Forgotten Realms or any of the other settings that are already out there. I mean, because copyright doesn't extend to me using it at my table, so
No,
it's not like
it does.
it's totally necessary. But it's always nice to have something that's the author's unique flair out there.
Oh, I plan on getting it done. I just need to finish up Ghosts of Vietnam, the RPG, and release that. I'm trying to find playtesters for it because I want to playtest some certain things and see how well the combat works. But we'll see. I don't know. Every time I put out a call for playtesters, I get silence.
Well,
That's the game.
I hate to say it, but it is second edition.
Yeah. Uh, now, to give you the insight of how Ghosts of Vietnam started, was that Alexander McCrease, he saw my Ghosts of Vietnam the draft announcement, and he retweeted it. Well, he quote tweeted it, and let me pull up what he said exactly because it's pretty funny. Uh, uh, he said, Gorgon's a great designer. Now he's writing war fiction. All that remains is for him to unite the two and create a Vietnam War RPG to replace the aging recon. Your mission, should you choose to accept it. So I accepted his challenge, and that was June 13th. So yeah, the X designer challenged me.
Hey, you got to rise to the occasion, right?
Oh yeah, I figured you'd get a
Can't.
kick out of that.
But hey, that's quick turnaround right there. Well, anyway, so Richard's been a pleasure having you on. I hope that Dad takes off in a big way. You definitely have my support, and if anybody who hadn't uh, seen Richard's appearance over on T-Shirted Historians podcast, I'll go ahead and link it below as well. I'll have a link to the Lulu shop below so that you can get your own copy of Damsels, Adventures, and Dragons. And I look forward to what's coming next. So thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me, my friend. I appreciate you. I appreciate all the people that have contacted me on Twitter and have bought my book. And if people buy the book and they tell me on Twitter or email me, "Hey, I bought your book," and I will try and find your order number, I will say, "Hey, your buyer number," and you can use that
Hey, there you go.
as an
Find out,
identifier.
find out if you were one of the first on the boat.
That's right. I appreciate everybody. So you guys have a wonderful evening, and thank you.
Absolutely. And guys, see you guys next time, and y'all have a good evening.